In 1944, the Allies were dropping more bombs on Germany in a single month than they had dropped during the early years of the war combined. Entire cities vanished from the map in nights that lasted only a few hours. More than 1,000 bombers could cross the sky at the same time, forming an endless stream of metal and fire. For the people on the ground, it looked like the end of the world. But you're not on the ground. You're inside one of those aircraft. The deep rumble of 4 engines vibrates through the metal beneath your boots. Inside the fuselage, the air smells like oil, hot electronics, and freezing high-altitude air. Outside, the night over Europe is dark and silent, except for the massive formation moving in the same direction. Every blinking light on the horizon is another Allied bomber. Hundreds of them. All flying toward the same destination. You adjust your radio headset while looking down at the illuminated map in front of you. The target is marked in red in the industrial heart of Germany. Factories. Rail yards. Fuel depots. Places that keep the German war machine alive. But there's something no one says out loud inside Bomber Command. Not everyone comes back from these missions. And when a formation this large crosses the skies of occupied Europe, the Germans are already waiting. Searchlights begin appearing on the distant horizon. And then, the anti-aircraft guns. But the night you ended up in that sky didn't start there. It started hours earlier, back in England. The runway was still covered by a thin layer of fog when you reached the bomber. Floodlights from the base illuminated the dark fuselages lined up across the airfield. Ground crews moved between the aircraft with flashlights, checking engines, wings, and bomb bays. The smell of aviation fuel mixed with the cold morning air. You had seen this scene before. But you never got used to it. Inside the briefing room, a giant map of Europe covered most of the wall. Red lines marked the route of the mission crossing the North Sea and pushing deep into German territory. An officer pointed to the night's target with a metal pointer. Industrial complexes. Rail networks. Infrastructure that kept Germany's war effort running. On paper, Bomber Command's strategy sounded simple: destroy Germany's ability to continue fighting. But for the men sitting in that room, the map left a lot out. It didn't show the defenses. It didn't show the night fighters. And it definitely didn't show how many aircraft wouldn't return. Minutes later, you climbed the narrow metal ladder into the bomber. The inside was cramped, freezing, and lit only by dim red lights. Each crew member moved to his station. Pilot. Navigator. Flight engineer. Gunners. And you. The bombardier. When the engines finally started, the entire aircraft shuddered like something waking up. One by one, the bombers began taxiing toward the runway. From the control tower, it looked like a procession of metal giants slowly rolling into the darkness. Then it was your turn. The pilot pushed the throttles forward. The 4 engines roared at full power, and the bomber surged down the runway while the weight of the bombs pressed the aircraft against the ground. For a few endless seconds, it felt like the plane wouldn't lift. Then suddenly, the landing gear left the runway. You were airborne. The formation began assembling over the English coast. Navigation lights blinked all around you, revealing dozens, then hundreds of other bombers climbing into the night. When you crossed the North Sea, the sense of safety disappeared completely. The radio stayed mostly silent. Only occasional navigation corrections and position confirmations broke the quiet. Hours passed slowly inside the freezing fuselage. Then the navigator finally spoke. You were entering German airspace. Almost immediately, beams of white light appeared on the distant horizon. Searchlights swept across the sky like giant fingers searching for something hidden in the darkness. Moments later, the first bursts appeared around the formation. Flak. German anti-aircraft guns didn't aim at one specific plane. They created a field of explosions in the sky. And you had to fly through it. The bomber shook violently as the first blasts erupted too close. Fragments of metal slammed against the fuselage like a storm of gravel. A distant flash caught your eye through the side window. One of the bombers in the formation had been hit. For a few seconds it kept flying, until one wing burst into flames. The aircraft slowly fell into the darkness. No one said anything over the radio, because everyone knew they hadn't even reached the target yet. And the worst part of the mission was still ahead. The target should already have been ahead of you. At least that's what the map said. You watched the navigator leaning over his table lit by a dim red lamp. Ruler, compass, and calculations scattered across the chart as he adjusted the route again. Outside, the formation continued forward through the exploding flak. But something felt wrong. The city that should have been appearing on the horizon simply wasn't there. The navigator frowned and quickly recalculated the position using the stars and the radio signals captured minutes earlier. For a few seconds no one spoke inside the bomber. Then he finally looked at the pilot. His voice came out lower than expected. "You are several miles off course. A small error on paper. A slightly misread wind correction over the North Sea. Just a few degrees." But at this stage of the mission, a few degrees meant something much bigger. It meant you were drifting into a completely different sector of German defenses. And worse, the main bomber formation had already begun its attack, somewhere ahead that you couldn't even see. Now you had a problem. Continue alone toward the target without the protection of the formation. Or try to find the other bombers again in a sky filled with flak and night fighters. The pilot tightened his grip on the controls. Because whatever decision came next might determine whether this aircraft returned to England or disappeared into the German night. The pilot glanced down at the instrument panel. The fuel needle had already dropped past where it should have been if everything had gone according to plan. The wrong course had cost time. And time, 10,000 feet above Germany, meant fuel burning with no way to replace it. The flight engineer ran quick calculations while watching the gauges trembling with the vibration of the engines. If you kept searching for the main formation, there might not be enough fuel left to make it back to England. But if you abandoned the mission now, the entire risk of the flight would have been for nothing. For a few seconds, only the deep hum of the engines filled the bomber. Then the navigator pointed out the side window. Lights. A city finally appeared on the dark horizon. Thin lines of illumination pushing through Germany's wartime blackout. Above it, several searchlights began slicing through the sky. It wasn't exactly the point marked on the map, but it was an industrial zone. And it might be the only chance to complete the mission. The pilot made the decision. You were going in. You slid forward into the bombardier's position at the nose of the aircraft. The metal frame of the bomb sight felt cold against your face as you began adjusting the controls. The city slowly grew beneath you. Now there was a new clock running. The time needed to line up the aircraft. The time needed to open the bomb bay. And the time before the German defenses realized a lone bomber was flying directly over the city. The first searchlight finally caught the aircraft. A beam of white light washed across the fuselage. Then another. Within seconds, the sky became a web of light trying to trap you in midair. The pilot held the course steady. During a bombing run, the aircraft had to fly straight. It was the most vulnerable moment of the entire mission. Anti-aircraft guns responded almost immediately. Black bursts erupted around the aircraft, each one throwing hundreds of metal fragments through the sky. You adjusted the bomb sight. Now everything depended on you. Factories appeared below. Rail lines. Industrial warehouses. Fuel storage tanks. The target slowly moved through the crosshairs while you made small corrections for wind and speed. Bomb bay doors open, you announced over the intercom. The hydraulic system groaned as the bomb bay opened to the freezing night air. Another explosion rocked the aircraft, much closer this time. A shard of flak tore through part of the left wing, and the flight engineer immediately checked the engine gauges. But the engines kept running. You kept your eyes locked on the bomb sight. Seconds. Just a few seconds until the correct release point. Because if you missed this moment, there wouldn't be enough fuel for another pass. The entire city was now directly beneath you. and every German defense gun seemed to be aiming at a single aircraft in the sky. Target, aligned. Your hand moved toward the bomb release lever. Bombs, away. You pulled the lever. For a brief moment, nothing happened. Then the bomber suddenly lifted slightly, lighter without the weight of the bombs. Below you, in the darkness of the industrial district, the bombs fell one after another. You couldn't see them hit. But seconds later, orange flashes erupted between the buildings, followed by waves of fire spreading through the industrial zone. The pilot immediately banked the aircraft away from the bombing run. Now you could maneuver again. Searchlights continued chasing the bomber through the sky while anti-aircraft guns fired desperately at a target already slipping away. A few more near explosions, more fragments striking the fuselage, and soon the city began fading behind you. Minutes later, only darkness remained beneath the aircraft. And slowly, the sky became empty again. Hours later, when the English coastline finally appeared on the horizon, nobody talked much inside the bomber. The mission was completed. You survived. But there was something you would only learn many years after the war. Captured German records later revealed that, on that same night, most German night fighters had been sent to intercept a much larger formation of Allied bombers, dozens of miles north of your position. If the navigation error had never happened, your bomber would have flown directly into the most heavily defended sector of German airspace that night. Sometimes in war, a small human mistake causes disaster. And sometimes, it's the only reason you're still alive to tell the story.